What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Teed Up. I am your host, Pierre, Pee Wee the Plug, Andreessen. Today, we're talking about this crazy, chaotic, and hectic NBA trade deadline. This is the most craziest NBA trade deadline of all time, and I'm standing 10 toes on that because I'm recording this on Wednesday. It is around 4 o'clock, so we got about 23 hours left for more drama and more craziness to happen, but I'm already saying with an entire day remaining that this is the craziest trade deadline of all time. Before we dive into everything, I do have to say happy birthday to Miss Penny. This is going to drop on Thursday, the trade deadline. Her birthday is the trade deadline. So happy birthday to my girl. She's turning 1. Daddy loves you. And yeah, I hate that I got to be away from you, but it's the trade deadline. There is a lot that has happened today. There is a lot that has happened over the last 3 or 4 days. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to begin. And actually, I'm lying. I know exactly where to start. We have to talk about the Luka Doncic trade, the Anthony Davis trade, the craziest trade I've ever experienced in my 30 years of living and paying attention to everything that's ever going on in the NBA. So, what I'm going to attempt to do is actually talk about the trade and what it does for the Lakers and the Mavericks going forward. I feel like I've talked about this trade on several different occasions. I talked about it on my YouTube channel when it first happened. I went live on Twitch when it first happened. And I talked about it on 2 different occasions with the Numbers on the Board podcast, our linear show that comes on TV on Tuesdays at 1 o'clock, and then our YouTube podcast that comes out on Tuesdays and Saturdays. So I talked about it 4 different times. And every time I've talked about it prior to today, I won't lie, it's been an emotional reaction. I spent a lot of my time questioning Nico Harrison, talking about how idiotic I think the move was, how stupid it was, how dumb it was, any other insulting word that insults somebody's intelligence. I did that for about 4 days. I don't want to do that here because I feel like everybody that watches this have probably seen my takes and my opinions. I do want to try to put on my basketball analyst cap and really just think about it going forward, post emotional outrage. So I'll start with the Lakers. The first thing I'll say with the Lakers is I've seen a lot of people, fans of the Lakers or fans of the NBA, they're still talking about the Lakers as this LeBron James-led team that's looking to compete for championships year in and year out. I think we have to remove that out of our brains. We have to start looking at the Lakers now, as crazy as it's going to sound, as Luka's team. I think every move now going forward is going to be on the best behalf of Luka Doncic and how do we build around him for the foreseeable future, because he's only 25 years, so you have to anticipate having him on your team for the next decade if you're the Los Angeles Lakers. And with that being said, the expectation of winning this year goes out of the window. Now, I'm not going to ever sit up here and say that the Los Angeles Lakers and who we know them to be, I'm never going to say that they're going to go out and just have a free year, that they're not going to try to do anything this year. That's a lie. LeBron James is still on the roster. You still have Luka. He's going to come back potentially Saturday against the Pacers. So they're going to play basketball games. They're probably going to make the playoffs. But just that expectation of championship or bust, I think we put that on pause for now. And I think we play this out for the next 23 hours. We'll see if they can make some other type of move to get some starting caliber center. Rob Pelinka already talked about the difficulties with that because the deadline is so crazy right now. We'll see if they're able to accomplish that. I know Vucevic out there in Chicago is still with the Bulls, and the Bulls made the Zach LaVine move that we'll talk about. So it seems like maybe Vucevic is still an option for the Lakers. He's not the defensive anchoring center that I think they may want or need or covet, like a Robert Williams, who's also still with the Blazers, who are playing phenomenal basketball right now. But there are some options for the Lakers to make one more smaller move. But I think the idea of championship is on pause for now. This was a get-out-of-jail-free card for the Lakers. Since the LeBron James and Anthony Davis era, they brought home a championship in the 2020 bubble, which was earned. They took it. It should be celebrated. I look at it as a typical championship. They got everything except the parade. Since that championship, management, and Rob Pelinka has not been able to reconstruct this team to get to that level again. They've come up short on a few different occasions. Lastly, we remember them getting swept in the Western Conference Finals. That was as close as they've gotten. But while doing so and falling short, they also mismanaged all of their assets, right? We know the Russell Westbrook moves. We know how they had to pivot and get back from underneath that move and go and get the D'Angelo Russells and the Jared Vanderbilts of the world and all of these other moves. And doing all of that, you kind of squandered away and mortgaged your future. And the Lakers were heading into a very dark place because the post-LeBron James era was looking very bleak and it was looking very diminished. You had really no tradable first-round picks. It didn't look like a destination anybody was going to come to. It went from championship or bust to kind of like a circus with the Bronny James draft pick and if they were going to play him and how they were going to develop and all of that distraction. And now we're here looking at the end of LeBron James' career on a team that isn't going to win a championship, that doesn't have assets, that doesn't have tradable first-round picks, that doesn't have young talent that you can develop and have some type of all-star potential. They had none of that. And so it looked like they were heading into what they were post-Kobe, which if you remember, that 3 or 4 year stretch after Kobe's career was really, really bad for the Lakers. And it took them a lot of time to reestablish their draft capital, to go in and acquire young talent through the draft and then develop it. We're talking about D'Angelo Russells, the Alonzo Balls, the Brandon Ingrams, the Kyle Kuzmas, the Zubats, the Josh Harts, the Jordan Clarksons, the Julius Randles. That was years of being a really bad organization and a really bad team collecting loss after loss after loss after loss. And since I've been alive, the Lakers just aren't that franchise that positions themselves to be compared or tied into any type of losing. That's just not what they do. They're almost like the Yankees. The Yankees, the Lakers, Duke University, Duke basketball. There's just certain teams and certain franchises that just don't associate with doing too much losing. And the Lakers are that. And so it looked like they were on the verge of going that route. And for Nico Harrison and the Dallas Mavericks to kind of throw them this blessing and just get out of jail free and Luka Doncic, it positions them so differently. And I think this is kind of perfect. I know a lot of us that aren't Laker fans, we're a little salty and agitated that the Lakers continue to find ways to get these mega stars. But I don't blame the Laker fans for being happy. It went from looking like a disgusting future to now you have Luka Doncic. You were able to retain the 2031 first-round pick, and you have the 2025 second-round pick, which maybe you can use that to get a Robert Williams or some type of starting caliber center over the next 23 hours. Maybe we'll see. And though you can't trade these picks, you still have, because of the stipend rule, 3 first-round picks. They just can't trade them, but they can use them in draft. And I think it's a lot easier with a guy like Luka Doncic drafting in the NBA draft and developing talent than what it is with LeBron. LeBron historically has preferred to use that draft capital to try to flip it for ready now players. I think, especially after seeing how Derek Lively was able to be utilized in his rookie year with the Mavericks on that NBA Finals run last year, Luka has shown you that he can play with other young talent and allow them to be useful out of the get-go. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Lakers, manipulate their future assets, because I think the Suns and what they did with the Jazz by flipping their future first-round pick for lower quality picks in the short term, what it did was it unlocked their stipend rule. And I'm wondering if that's a route for the Lakers as well. Because if you have the 2031 pick, which is going to be coveted, it's going to be highly valued because it's 6 years away. Even with Luka Doncic, that pick is valued because there's no telling what the NBA looks like 6 years from now. And I wonder if the Lakers saw what the Suns did and if they're thinking about potentially taking that 2031 first-round pick and selling it to a franchise like the Spurs, the Jazz, the Thunder, all of these teams that have a surplus of future picks. If you can take that pick from 6 years from now and flip it for 4 first-round picks in the foreseeable future, that may not have the same type of quality or the value. That's what this is. It's a quality over quantity type thing. So a team like the Utah Jazz, they gave up 3 first-round picks for the Suns' future first-round pick because the quality of that pick is more impactful than those 3 picks that they gave up. If the Lakers can find another suitor like that, what they would be able to do in the short term is fill those holes. So the stipend rule is a rule where NBA teams can't trade consecutive first-round picks. So because the Lakers have traded 2025, 2027, and 2029, they by default can't trade 2026, 2028, 2030, which is what they have left. But if they flip their 2031 pick for hypothetically 4 short-term first-round picks, you get a first-round pick in 2025, you get a first-round pick in 2027, you get a first-round pick in 2029, you'll be able to unlock the full asset pool again. And that in the short term would allow you to get real flexible with how you're going to surround Luka Doncic with the rest of the talent or the rest of the roster you want to put around him so you can compete sooner than later. I'm very interested to see if that's the route the Lakers are going to go. I think that's very, very interesting as far as roster construction goes. I also think there's a world where you use the 2031 pick and you attach it with some of these contracts that I'm seeing on this roster, whether that's the Jared Vanderbilt 4-year deal, 3 years with a player option, whether that's the Gabe Vincent deal that's around 11 or 12 million and has 1 year after this one. Who else is on that roster? The Rui Hachimura contract. There are some contracts that the Lakers can put together to make a superstar salary. And I don't know who's going to be available. I don't know who's going to be interested, but I do know that 2031 pick is going to hold an extreme amount of value. And when I take all of that and I look at the roster of Luka, his best friend, and Dorian Finney-Smith, who's an incredible 3-and-D versatile defender, I look at a guy like Dalton Knecht, who I know a lot of people like Dalton Knecht, and he was a solid type of rookie. I think for me, his value in his trajectory goes up playing next to a guy like Luka Doncic. Right now, if I'm not mistaken, the Lakers are 27th in three-point attempts per game. Historically, Luka Doncic-led teams always finish top 10 in three-point attempts per game. They always finish top 10. You can go do your research, do your due diligence. The Lakers are going to now be a team that I think their philosophy is going to change with a guy like Luka. He generates so much attention. He creates so many perimeter shots for his teammates. I know that's going hand in hand with the philosophy that JJ Redick wants to play with. JJ Redick has talked about analytics and the data and the stats and the way he wants to play. I think that was one of the driving forces for this Luka Doncic trade. Not that they needed JJ Redick to sign off on it, but the relationship that they've had playing with each other in Dallas, the way JJ Redick wants to play, I think Luka really drives that home times 10, right? And I think a guy like Dalton Knecht value goes up. Again, I think those current draft picks that you have that you can't trade and that you may have to select rookies with, even if you're a playoff team, ironically, way different than LeBron's kind of philosophy. I think the Lakers will be able to be a team that's a playoff team and that picks in the 20s or the late 20s. I think there'll be a team that's able to identify value there. I think when you look at other teams around the league, these other franchises like the Memphis Grizzlies, who are able to find the Desmond Baines and the Jalen Wells and the Brandon Clarks and, all the Gigi Jacksons and Vince Williams, I think the Lakers could be that type of team with Luka. I just think that he makes guys around him better at a different rate. And I believe that the Lakers are going to have a much more easier time putting this team together. My only question mark and my only concern, or that I can't really put my finger on going forward, is LeBron James. LeBron is saying all the right things about staying and welcoming Luka, and I believe every word he's saying. But again, we have not seen a LeBron James team ever in his career where the direction and the focus has not been about him. And I'm telling you now, the Lakers are a Luka Doncic team going forward. And that's my only reservation that I have. LeBron is one of the smartest players on the floor, historically, of all time. But LeBron is also one of the smartest players off the floor. And I think LeBron and Rich Paul are so smart that they know to not make a fuss about this right now. No matter how they genuinely feel, and everything LeBron is saying may be true. I just seen another day say, hey, I have a no trade clause. I could waive that at any time I want. If I didn't like the Luka trade, I could just say, get me out of here right now. I hear that, but I also understand the intelligence of LeBron and Clutch Sports. There's no intelligence in requesting a trade with 2 days left in the deadline with the league running as crazy as it is, right? Jimmy Butler still has no destination. Kevin Durant is now available. He has no destination. 8 hours ago, it looked like he was going to the Warriors. 2 hours ago, he told us no thanks. There's a lot of uncertainty around the NBA right now. I think LeBron James and Clutch is very smart enough to understand there's no value in saying anything right now. Let's let everything fall where it may. Let the chips fall where they may. And let's get a real sense of what's going on in the NBA. And we will have more control over our destination to properly facilitate whatever move we want in the offseason. And so when I look at LeBron on his roster, I can't wait to see him and Luka Doncic on the floor together. I can't wait. But I'm also not sold that LeBron is going to be a Laker. I want to take what he says and take it for what it is. But I'm also understanding that, again, we've just never seen a team say, hey, LeBron, we love to have you. We love that you're here, but we're prioritizing this guy. We've just never seen that. And I don't even know if the Lakers at this point are sure that they want LeBron there, just because you can't ignore LeBron. You can't not have him involved with everything that you're doing. And I just know that they're ready to get the next version of their team built. And while his salary is there, while him and Bronny are still there, while Clutch is still there, they're going to have to kind of cater to LeBron in some sort. Now, obviously, it's Luka's team, but LeBron is still there. You still owe him some respect, and you still have to worry about the fit of them being on the court together. They play a similar style, and we have yet to see LeBron kind of change his game to play with anybody. We've seen him evolve, but as much as Luka Doncic likes to have the ball, this is going to be a very interesting fit, and I can't wait to see it because they are two intelligent basketball players. It's not impossible, right? There is a world where LeBron does say, hey, I am happy, I am content. I just want to ride out into the sunset, playing on a team with my son. I'm fine with playing with Luka and being his mentor. That is definitely a possible ideal situation for LeBron. I'm just thinking about the Lakers going forward. And that's my only question mark. I do understand that there are a lot of other moves that the Lakers have to make. I'm just excited to see what exactly a Luka-led Laker team is going to look like. I'm excited to see what Rob Pelinka has up his sleeves. I'm excited to see how creative they can get. And I'm extremely excited to see Luka Doncic with a chip on his shoulder. I think Luka Doncic will be motivated. He's definitely pissed off. He just bought a $15 million house. I don't care how much money you have. Whenever you have an opportunity to get $350 million on a Supermax and a team that drafted you and that you just took to the finals trades you out of thin air and removes the possibility of that happening, and you just feel like you spent $15 million for nothing, you're going to be pissed off. And let's not mention the smear campaign. I'm 270 pounds. I don't take basketball serious. I'm not focused in a clutch. The things that Luka Doncic has heard be said on his name, I think is going to make him a killer, and he's already was a killer. So I'm extremely excited to see a motivated Luka. I'm extremely excited to see the Lakers have another star. As jealous as I am as a Knicks fan, what I will say as I close out my Lakers perspective and thought process, as much as we hate on the Lakers for getting all of these stars, they know what to do with it, damn it. As a Kobe Bryant fan, I've seen them three-peat. They lost Shaq. They had some down years, and Kobe fired up the league for years. Then they were able to get Gasol. They went on another three-peat that turned into a two-peat, but they did make the 3 consecutive appearances. Then you go out and get LeBron. You were able to get Anthony Davis immediately, won a championship. The Lakers know what to do with their star talent. I am tired of seeing them get everybody, but at least these talented players are going to a team and an organization that knows exactly what to do to build a consistent winner. Now, the LeBron James, Anthony Davis era, did it win as much as we thought, as much as they hoped? No, but ultimately it was entertaining. They did win, and that is what it's all about. And now here they are again with Luka Doncic, and I have everything from their history that leads me to believe Luka Doncic will somehow win a championship with the Lakers. I think what I want to challenge my viewers to do, let me know in the history of the Lakers, has there ever been a star that they've went out and acquired, whether draft, free agency, trade, a legitimate star who hasn't won there? Has that ever happened? Wilt won, West won, Baylor won, Kareem won, Magic won, Shaq won, Kobe won, Gasol won, Bron won, Davis won. That lets me know in an analytical driven society that we're in today, where we look at facts and we look at numbers and everything to give us proof, right? Non-Laker fans, hear me out. The odds and the stats say that Luka Doncic is going to win a championship with the Lakers in his tenure. Unless Luka Doncic is going to be traded again next year at the deadline, maybe this is a theme. The odds and the stats say they're going to build a championship team around him. So, again, as much as the rest of the NBA may hate to see the Lakers get everybody, they know what to do with the talent. I'll give them that. And I cannot wait to see the Luka Doncic-led Lakers for the next foreseeable future. Now, switching gears to the Mavericks. I'm going to try to talk about the Mavericks without talking about Nico Harrison, right? You have Kyrie Irving. You have Anthony Davis. You still have Derek Lively, though he may not play this season again. You still have Derek Lively, a young, intriguing center. You have Gafford. You just traded for Caleb Martin yesterday for Quentin Grimes. So you now have a versatile veteran defender who you have under contract for the next 4 years, because Quentin Grimes is going to go into restricted free agency, if I'm not mistaken. You have Max Christie, who I like as a young wing. You have Jaden Hardy, Najee Harris, Klay Thompson. You have some depth and whatnot there. My only gripe with the Mavericks, I think they win the trade in the foreseeable future. They're going to have a better team this year. As much shit as they're being given for this Luka Doncic trade, I think they're going to have a better team this year. I'll give them that. I just can't get past the contradiction of trading Luka for conditioning purposes and all of this nonsense. And in return, you get back Anthony Davis, who's an all-NBA player as of this year, all defensive for sure, all-star, should have been an all-star starter potentially. All-star, though, 10-time all-star. He's an incredible talent. And the defense has already been good over the last few years since they've gotten Jason Kidd. It's only going to be better. You have Kyrie Irving, who is, one of the best bucket getter guards that we've seen in NBA history. You have the experience in the shooting of Klay Thompson. You have the depth that I'll just mention. They're going to be good this year. They're going to be solid. Do I think they're a championship contender? No. Do I think they're going to win the championship? No. I just feel a certain way about having a team led with two guys going into their 30s who, over the course of their entire careers, just not have been able to stay healthy. And I'll give them credit. They've been extremely healthy over the last couple of years, especially Anthony Davis. He's done a really good job of answering the call of being able to be available. He had the injury-prone tag on him. The last couple of years, you cannot call him Anthony day-to-day as they did call him. You can't call him that. You cannot call him that. But he is currently hurt right now. And you always have to have that in the back of your mind. And to pair him with somebody like Kyrie, who has been known to miss games as well, it just creates a shakiness in that franchise, in my opinion. And I don't think they have enough to where they're going to be able to not have those guys on the floor. I mean, Anthony Davis, maybe you have a surplus and front court talent, but at the guard position, they're going to need Kyrie Irving to be available. They're going to need him to be ready, and they're going to need him to play at an all-NBA level, and they're going to need him to be their guy. When you talk about offense, you have Anthony Davis on the perimeter. I mean, on the interior, you have Kyrie on the perimeter. Outside of that, I think it's a lot of shakiness, and I think when you come to the playoff basketball 7-game series, they're going to be shaky series to series. PJ Washington, will he be a 40% three-point shooter this series? Will he be a guy that can't make above the break threes in the next series? Same thing with Klay. At this age and at this day, Klay is kind of, he's kind of hit or miss as far as the production he's giving you. I think you always have to respect him as a shooter, and he's always going to garner 40% three-point respect from defenses. But the two big lineup that Anthony Davis has wanted to play with and play for, as he was asking the Lakers to do, it makes you a little clunky offensively, right? Because you're probably thinking of a lineup now that is probably Kyrie, Clay, PJ Washington, Anthony Davis, and Daniel Gafford. You do have different lineup options where you can be a little bit smaller with Anthony Davis at the 5, maybe Najee Marshall, Caleb Martin on the wings, Klay Thompson and Kyrie Irving. So you have that, but still, I just think that the offensive firepower is still lacking. And we talked about it on the Numbers on the Board podcast, and Kenny made a great point. Kyrie is going to see a lot of those big defenders. He's also going to see a lot of those primary number one defenders that we saw Luka, have the assignment of. And because you just don't have these legitimate perimeter threats or scoring, I think defenses will be able to load up on Kyrie. I think they'll be able to load up on Anthony Davis. And as great of a scorer as Kyrie Irving is, he's not the facilitator and the distributor that Luka Doncic is. And we saw a lot of times during that NBA Finals run for the Mavericks, Luka was able to torch a lot of defenses with his scoring and with his passing, right? And he was able to use his lob threats in Gafford and Lively. He would have used Anthony Davis as a lob threat for sure. And that's my big reservations for the Mavericks. How are they going to look as a complete team in the playoffs? And how much more can they get better in the foreseeable future? I feel like when you're building around two 30-year-olds who've dealt with a lot of injuries in their career, the window for them now has shrunk. And I hear some of the conspiracy theories about the casino and the casino stuff being built, and it's not happening in Dallas, so they may want to move the team to Vegas. That's the only conspiracy theory that makes any type of sense to me. I think the Mavericks are going to be good in the foreseeable future, but I think long term, the Lakers wash the floor with them. I think this is going to probably be a F grading for me for the long term. I think in the short immediate future, they get a C plus. It's just hard to positively grade a trade where you give up Luka Doncic and you don't get back multiple draft picks. You don't get back young talent that can be developed, and it just feels extremely lopsided. And to say defense wins championships, I think it's true to a certain degree. There's a reason why number one overall picks in the NBA are not looked at as only defensive players. A Rudy Gobert type center is never going to go number one in today's game. A Drew Holiday type defender will never go number one in the NBA draft. A Herb Jones caliber defender is never going number one in the NBA draft. You're looking for two-way superior players who can put the ball in a basket. That's the day and age that we're living in. Unless it was last year's draft where everybody called it weak and there was no true superstar that people were able to see, and you get, the Zachary Richichets going number one. And I think even then, he's still looked at as a wing that's going to be able to put the ball in a basket at some type of level that teams are going to be intrigued by. So that's my 2 cents on the Luka and Anthony Davis trade. I do think the Mavericks are going to be good defensively. I think they're going to be even better. Jason Kidd is coaching a defensive philosophy where they want to guard the paint and the twos, and they want to invite teams to shoot threes because teams are so wishy-washy from three on a night-in, night basis that unless you're playing against the Boston Celtics, you're kind of living with teams taking a bunch of threes and inviting them there, because if you live by the three, you die by the three. And the Mavericks are not letting you get easy buckets. They're not letting you get easy twos. You're going to take a lot of threes. They'll live with that. Their points in the paint, their paint defense has not been that good. I think that goes up tremendously with Anthony Davis. They've given up a lot of offensive rebounding. I think that doesn't look the same with Anthony Davis being on the court, but I think the philosophy stays the same. I think they have a bunch of guys going under screens and forcing guys to shoot three-point shots. I think they're going to play heavy gap. I think they're going to load up on superstars, and they're going to use their length and their size to really take up space. And they're going to open up the floor for a lot of shaky shooters to have to make shots. And if you're able to make a lot of three-point shots against the Dallas Mavericks with this new look defense, they'll tip their cap and say, hey, beat us again that way three times to win this series. I just saw that the Pistons game, they didn't have Anthony Davis from a few days ago. They gave up around like 60-something points in the paint. I think performances like that will become far and few between now with an Anthony Davis type of anchor behind them versus having a Daniel Gafford. Even the game against Philadelphia the other night where they lost against Joel Embiid and the performance he had, Embiid was able to take advantage of a lot of the lack of size that they had when Daniel Gafford got out of the game and when Daniel Gafford was in the game. I think when you have Anthony Davis now on the floor and you have more size, the philosophy of throwing bodies at Embiid, taking up as much space, gapping up, I think that's a good philosophy to have. You just have to have the personnel. And now that Anthony Davis is there, they'll have a lot more success with that type of level of defense. Switching gears to the next trade, De'Aaron Fox, which ironically and sadly enough, it feels like a trade that isn't that big of a deal because nobody expected Luka Doncic to be traded. But the Spurs, they acquire De'Aaron Fox and Jordan McLaughlin. The Sacramento Kings acquire Zach LaVine, CD Sissoko. I've been saying his name wrong for a very long time. My comments can correct me there. They also get 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks. And the Bulls get Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter, and their own 2025 pick, which is now unprotected. What we just found out as we started the show, the Kings have now also traded CD Sissoko, who I'm probably saying his name wrong again. They've traded him to the Washington Wizards, and they now have constructed a deal where they're going to be getting Jonas Valanciunas. So Jonas Valanciunas is now a King in return for 2 second-round picks and CD. So the Kings now walk away from the deadline as of now because there is still 20-something hours left with Zach LaVine, Jonas Valanciunas, and a few first-round picks, really about 2 first-round picks, and a new-look team. And the Kings walk away. I mean, the Spurs walk away with De'Aaron Fox, their new franchise point guard. I'll start from the bottom up. The Bulls, they finally washed their hands with the Zach LaVine situation. I think the Bulls did good considering that over the offseason, it sounded like they were going to have to attach draft capital to get off the Zach LaVine contract. It was almost untradeable at one point. And they were able to move him. They get Trey Jones, Zach Collins, and Kevin Huerter. Maybe they can reroute Kevin Huerter over the last 20 hours or so. We'll see. I do think there's value in the Bulls retaining their own draft pick and just playing out the season. You don't have the stress of trying to tank the last 25 or so games to make sure you retain the pick. Whatever happens now, you'll have a 20-25 pick. Now, do the Bulls front office give their fan base confidence that they'll be able to select the proper prospect? No. But you got to shoot. The Bulls have to take as many swings as they can. All it takes is one right pick. That's all it takes. Your draft history doesn't matter if you hit on that one pick that changes the franchise forever, or at least just gives you some type of proper trajectory. They did it with Modest, and now the pressure of this next pick lessens, I think. And all you have to do is just get another good prospect. We'll see what happens with Vucevic. The 3 guys that they got, I don't really value as far as their Bull tenure. I don't really think we'll see Zach Collins and Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter becoming Bull staples. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with Trey Jones. I think he goes into restricted free agency. The Bulls have 1,000 guards. Shout out to Cuzzo, Javon Carter. So I don't know how they are going to operate with Trey Jones there. From the Kings' perspective, interesting couple of trades, right? Normally, you think De'Aaron Fox would be traded. You have the same philosophy I thought for Luka Doncic. You want some type of young talent, and you want draft capital. They got the draft capital. They weren't able to get the young talent, so they pivoted and got win-now players like Zach LaVine and Jonas Valanciunas. They're going to be a solid team out west. They've been playing really good basketball since Doug Christie has become the head coach and firing Mike Brown. The roster construction is still a little shaky, right? Malik Monk is now your point guard. You have Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, and Sabonis. Defensively, that 5-man group is not that respectable. You still have to find out how you're going to incorporate Keon Ellis, who has been your best perimeter defender all year long. And you double down by going out and get Jonas Valanciunas, so you're not going to have a rim-protecting, rim-anchoring center, right? There was rumors of them being linked to maybe like a more Robert Williams-esque backup center to have some type of defensive element on that team. They just went out and got more size to where they'll be at least able to control the offensive and defensive glass. I'll give them that. They have two rebounding juggernauts. Zach LaVine is going to give you three-point shooting, which they've struggled to have all year long. He gives you another 20-point score. He's efficient. Him and DeMar seem to have a good relationship. I just think ultimately there's a ceiling on his team, but this positions them to be able to compete for some type of playoff spot or play-in spot to try to get into the playoffs again for their fan base who deserves that. And then also you get some picks, maybe in the offseason you can find a way to get creative, or if there's a domino effect where in the offseason you move on from DeMar, you want to move on from Sabonis, I don't know. You already kickstarted that by adding 3 or 2 picks to your draft asset pool. So that's just really my take with the Kings. I don't have too much knowledge on the full direction. They're kind of just going to be an in-between team, and they're going to try to win as much as they can and, satisfy their fan base with that. Now, again, I think their fan base deserves that. I'm going to give McNair, their GM, a little bit of credit. I feel bad for the Kings. De'Aaron Fox informing them how he feels at the time that he did, it kind of put them behind the 8 ball. They just didn't have too much time to work with De'Aaron Fox to find the proper suitor and to get back the proper package. Not only was it a timing thing, it also didn't help that De'Aaron Fox in clutch let it be known around the league that he had a preferred destination. Once you have a week before the deadline and teams are alerted that he has a preferred destination he's going to try to get to in 2026 free agency, it scares a lot of teams from being active in the trade talks. And now it kind of forces you to trade him to the team that he wants to go to. And because the Spurs are like, hey, he wants to come here anyway, you don't have any other suitors because they know he wants to come here. We don't have to give up the farm. We don't have to give you a boatload of draft picks. We don't have to give you Stephon Castle. We don't have to give you Devin Vassell. We don't have to give you Jeremy Sohan. Hell, we don't have to give you Keldon Johnson. This is what we're going to give you. You're going to take it, because if you don't, he's going to sit there and he's going to find a way to get to us anyway, and no other team is going to give you anything. So you can lose him for free and continue to have him be disgruntled, or you could take these 3 first-round picks and we'll facilitate you getting Zach LaVine. And so I think about all of that, and I try to give the Kings a little bit of benefit of the doubt. They have historically have not been a franchise that know how to make moves, that knows how to draft. They just kind of been all over the place. I think this is one situation where you kind of got a feel for them. They just were put in a very, very tough position, very unfair. And so I feel for them and their fan base in that perspective. It's just a really tough position to be in. You were able to get something. It's better than nothing. And again, once you have a disgruntled star that is saying he wants to leave, he's not returning, and he has a preferred destination, that's just a very hard asset to work with and get a big return from. So because of that, we're going to take it easy on the Kings reviewing their trade. And lastly, the San Antonio Spurs, they get their guard of the future. They've been a very good franchise over the last few years as far as building up the next version of their team. You landed Wemby, and I think before you got Wemby and after you got Wemby, you've done a really good job of surrounding him with really good complementary players. Devin Vassell, in a way he can shoot and score the basketball, especially from the perimeter. Jeremy Sohan, and especially the emergence and the step he's taken this year, looks like a really good glue guy who's going to give you some energy. He's going to be tenacious on the defensive side of the basketball. He's going to rebound. His offensive game has looked good this year versus the previous years. And then this year, getting Stephon Castle, a guy who's a really good connector, can play some on ball, can play off ball. They like him at the wing, get out in transition. He can guard. His offensive stats aren't overwhelmingly good right now as a teenage rookie, but I think you can see some areas in his game that look like they're going to translate really well at the NBA level. And every time I've watched Stephon Castle, whether it's been a pro level, college level, high school level, he's been a winner. He knows how to play winning basketball. And I think just that factor in itself helps your franchise. And that's why the Spurs have always found ways to be successful, because they know how to identify those guys, the guys that are unselfish, make winning plays that go beyond the stat sheet, and just know how to play with others. Stephon Castle checks the boxes for all of those. I was on record saying in this draft class, I felt like he was the most safest pick because he was going to find a way to be a successful contributing NBA player at a high level. It feels like the Spurs agree with that, and they were able to retain him. They still have a asset pool that has a bunch of draft picks still. So in the offseason or during next year's deadline, if there's another guy that becomes available that makes sense for them, they still have young players and draft capital to make some type of move happen. And I cannot wait to see the rest of the season play out. I can't wait to see exactly what they look like. And I can't wait to go into the offseason saying they're missing this, they're missing that, and they're missing this, and to see how they get creative to go and get those things and to fill those holes, because this team is going to be a very scary Western Conference team for the foreseeable future. You now have them, you have Houston, you have Memphis, there are a lot, you have OKC. There are a lot of good teams right now that still have a high trajectory and potential to be even better. And as long as they got that Wemby guy, they already was scary. But now you pair a young De'Aaron Fox heading into his prime, wanting to be there. They're going to extend him. And the fit on paper matches brilliant. The Spurs are 9-11 in the clutch this year. They haven't been really good in the clutch. A lot of that is on the defensive side of the basketball, but offensively they've struggled as well in certain areas. I think De'Aaron Fox gives you that boost. I think the way he's able to play off of Wemby. I think the one thing that they've also lacked was perimeter shot creation for themselves and for others, and he's going to be able to do that. All of the space that Wemby creates with his three-point shooting at that size, the gravity he causes, the attention he absorbs, they now have a guy that can weaponize that at a high level, right? You went from being a 40-year-old Chris Paul, a rookie Stephon Castle, and some other, not so talented people trying to weaponize Wemby's gravity to create offense. And now it's an all-star point guard that you have at the helm doing it. So I think the Spurs are going to be extremely scary. I think they're going to be a play-in team. And if I'm being honest, they're not a team that I would want to see in the first round having to beat in 7 games. Because, again, Victor Wembanyama is a guy that every 3 months we're seeing him evolve into a much greater form and a much greater player. So look out for the Spurs to continue to rise and be a big factor in the Western Conference. Moving on to today's trades. The Washington Wizards and the Milwaukee Bucks agreed on a trade this morning. I woke up to this trade. The Milwaukee Bucks are receiving Kyle Kuzma. They're receiving Patrick Baldwin. And they're receiving a couple of second-round picks. And the Washington Wizards are going to receive Khris Middleton, A.J. Johnson, and a future 2028 first-round pick that has a soft swap, whatever soft swap means. This is very interesting, man. This is a very, very interesting trade. The first thing I will say is me and my producer, Christian, talked about it a little bit. It is a little sad, right? Khris Middleton was there at the beginning of it all as this franchise turned over into a winning franchise. He was there for the championship run. He was Giannis's sidekick for the entire Giannis era, the superstar Giannis. And so to now see him traded, and not only traded, but traded to Washington, you feel for him a little bit. I've seen a lot of Buck fans and a lot of NBA fans grading the trade on personnel. The first thing we have to do is realize this. Shout out to Bobby Marks, by the way. Whenever trades go down or whenever you're in the NBA circle and you're seeing all of this cap and second apron talk and anything, Bobby Marks is a really good follow to have. He worked in the NBA before with the Brooklyn Nets, I believe, in their front office. It was the Brooklyn Nets or the Memphis Grizzlies, one of those teams. And he did a lot of work with them. So he knows about the salary cap restrictions and all of that different language that they speak. And he knows about the apron stuff. So when a lot of these deals happen, a lot of fans, they tweet at me and they're like, man, why would we do this? Why did we do that? Why did the Celtics trade Jaden Springer for nothing? I like Jaden Springer. Bobby Marks is a guy that makes it all make sense because it's all cap and apron related. So with this trade, Milwaukee Bucks, they drop below the second apron. Washington, they add A.J. Johnson, the 23rd pick, and who turned 20 in December. And the Wizards, they now have a valuable first-round pick swap in 2028. To help Milwaukee build, this is all Bobby Marks, out their roster, Kyle Kuzma reduced a portion of his trade bonus. So like Anthony Davis, he's helping his new team from a financial flexibility standpoint. I think that's always honorable and admirable when newly acquired guys who've been traded are thinking about the team and a team first type mentality so that you can win. It makes a statement made before you even play your first game. I am about winning. I am about helping the franchise. Let's get to work. Now, from the financial standpoint, the Milwaukee Bucks, they get Kyle Kuzma, who is on a declining contract. He's making $23.5 million this year. He'll make $21.5 million next year. And then the last year of his deal, he'll be making $19.4 million. Very, very important to know when contracts are descending, when they're ascending, or when they're flat. Now, there's a $3 million bonus, unlikely bonuses that count towards the apron from Kuzma's contract. Patrick Baldwin Jr. is also on a $2.5 million deal currently, and then he'll enter unrestricted free agency. Washington, they're going to get $31 million from Khris Middleton. He'll make $34 million next year on a player option. And then he also has $2.5 million with unlikely bonuses that will count towards the apron. And then A.J. Johnson is on a $2.8 million deal this year, 3.1 next year, 3.2 after that, and 5.5 after that. This was a financial deal for the Wizards. That's all this was. It was very financial driven. This allows them to get under the second apron and allows them to be able to aggregate a lot of different contracts to make moves, right? Prior to this trade, they had to match money to a T. This opens up the floodgates for them by getting out the long, not long, but hefty amount of money that they were going to owe Khris Middleton. And you now kind of have a lesser salary in Kyle Kuzma just over a lot more years, or a couple of more years. And that's what this is about. Now, there is a basketball element where the Milwaukee Bucks are hoping that Kyle Kuzma is going to be able to contribute. Khris Middleton was efficient. He was shooting the ball really well. But it was evident that the 2 ankle procedures that he got over the summer, they didn't do him any favors at this age. And his availability was something that was starting to be in question. Even when he was available, they had him on basically a low minute count. Kuzma's a lot younger. Kuzma is a guy that is healthy for the most part. And I think Kuzma is a valuable basketball player. This year, Kyle Kuzma has not been good. He's not been shooting the basketball really well. He's not been scoring the basketball. He hasn't been efficient. It's been a mess. But he has also played for a Washington Wizards team that isn't the same type of environment as Milwaukee. They don't have the same level of talent. They're a lot younger. I've told people for years, it is extremely hard for players to get up and play every single day knowing that they're heading into a losing situation. When you're on a team that you're losing majority of the games you play, it is extremely hard to be your best version. When you're grading players as defenders, it's hard waking up and coming to the gym to defend for 48 minutes when you're 7-30. When you're 33 games behind, 33 games back, you're damn right they're not defending. People used to say that about like Zach LaVine on like the bad Bull teams or, some of the bad Timberwolves teams. It's like, yeah, Zach LaVine can't defend. He's not going to defend on a team that has 55 losses. You're right. So it's no excuse for Kuzma because I don't know why Kuzma is playing as bad as he is this year. He's had some stronger years with the Wizards. He had really good years with the Lakers on their championship run, being a very good role player who can catch and shoot the basketball, guard a couple of different positions, can put the basketball on the floor on occasion, can go off on a heater, give you 20 on one night, may even pop out for 30. I think he can bring some of that to Milwaukee. I still think some of that basketball is there. I think the environment is going to be different from one. Playing with a Dame, playing with a Giannis, playing for something is going to awaken the basketball that's the good basketball that's still there in Kyle Kuzma. So I do think that the Bucks get that. I think he will be a little bit of a better third option for them than what they were getting from this version of Khris Middleton. Don't get me wrong. Khris Middleton, prior to all of these injuries and the ankle procedures, it's not a comparison. But I do think that there's value from a basketball perspective in the right now for the Bucks in this trade. I don't like that you had to give up A.J. Johnson. for what you gave him up for. I don't think AJ Johnson was going to reach his fullest potential on a Bucks team that's a playoff team, a championship team that's trying to win the championship. Yeah, a 17, 18-year-old guy who's at a guard is not going to come and get a shit ton of minutes. But I don't like the fact that you kind of just gave him up in a throw-in Kyle Kuzma trade, in which you already were giving up a first-round soft swap first-round pick. And AJ Johnson was a first-round pick from this past year. So you're kind of giving up 2 first-round picks in a technical sense for Kyle Kuzma. But I do love the gift for the Wizards. I think AJ Johnson is a guy that should thrive a lot better in a Washington-type environment versus the Bucks. He's now on a team that isn't playing for much. They're playing to develop the talent that they have, so mistakes are a lot more acceptable. There's a more opportunity, and again, the timeline, the environment. He's going to be there with a lot of guys that are closer in his age. A lot of more similarities and interests and different things like that. So I love that for him. I think he was a very underrated part of this trade for the Washington Wizards to get. And yeah, I think a lot of Bucks fans have to think about this from a financial standpoint. You guys have a lot of people on that roster that you might have to package up with things to move. Without this trade happening, there was not a lot of packaging you can do. You had to take on and bring in the same exact set. Had the salary had to match and be exact. You can't aggregate contracts and all of this complicated second apron stuff. You now get below that, and it now opens up the door to figure out how to move a Pat Connaughton and a Bobby Portis, and you take this and attach that, and that can do that. It opens up a lot more flexibility for this roster to have proper construction. So that's really my thoughts on that trade. We do have some minuscule trades that also happen outside of that. The Philadelphia 76ers, they traded KJ Martin and a 2027 second-round pick via the Milwaukee Bucks and a 2031 second-round pick via the Dallas Mavericks to the Pistons. And the 76ers, they get out of tax, and they get an $8 million trade exception. So, again, a lot more deals are going to be done to just get under the apron, save some money for some tax purposes, and create some flexibility maybe for the buyout market. So the 76ers are now $1.4 million below the luxury tax with KJ Martin going to Detroit. This trade saves the Philadelphia 76ers about $20 million. This is why all of this cap talk, the luxury, the second apron, it's like a different language to me. KJ Martin was not this crazy contract. I don't even think he made $20 million in total with his current contract, but it saved the Philadelphia 76ers $20+ million. They also now have 2 open roster spots, and they generate an $8 million trade exception. So yeah, the trade does a lot for them. Don't forget they traded Caleb Martin yesterday as well, but KJ Martin has $7.97 million on his deal for this year, and then he has $8 million for next year. Zero of it is guaranteed. And now Detroit, who used some of their available cap space to absorb the KJ Martin trade or contract, they now have $6 million in cap space available. So the Pistons may be another team or be a team that gets involved in another trade to help facilitate something, as they've been rumored all trade season long. Another deal that we had was the Pelicans. They are trading their center, Daniel Tice, and draft compensation to the Oklahoma City Thunder. You know, Sam Presti loves getting draft compensation. And what this deal does is it makes the New Orleans Pelicans below the luxury tax. They were $1,004 above the luxury tax prior to the trade. They are now below because Thies is on an expiring $2.1 million contract. So now they should be $700,000 below the luxury tax. And then the last trade that we have for luxury tax and apron purposes, the Boston Celtics traded Jaden Springer and a 2030 second-round pick to the Houston Rockets. And they're exchanging heavily protected second-rounders also. But what this trade does, it's the tax penalty. The Celtics tax penalty go down from $65 million to $50 million. And it opens up 2 roster spots for them. And then the Rockets, they get Jaden Springer, who's going to go into restricted free agency after this year. And yeah, they use their 12.8 non-tax mid-level exception to absorb Jaden Springer's contract. So a lot of complicated tax and apron facilitation going on in these trades, but I'm here to make some type of sense. So a lot of these deals, when you see a guy like Jaden Springer, who you may, as a Celtic fan, be a fan of, you may have seen some flashes where like, oh, I like this kid. A lot of these moves are just to help you in the buyout or on the open market to have some type of flexibility. And if you have Boston Celtic type teams who have a championship ready roster, who won the championship last year and still are to some a heavy favorite to repeat, when you have teams like them getting creative and trading players to get below the luxury here, to get below the apron here, when you have teams like them doing it, imagine what the not so good teams are going to be doing. Like the Pelicans. Why would the Pelicans be over the luxury? Why would the Pelicans face any apron problems when they're not even a playoff team? Why? Why would they do that? So we're going to continue to see, I think, over the next 20 hours, a lot of minuscule trades where a lot of teams are going to try to be as proactive as they can be with the second apron. You have to remember, if you are in the second apron this year or, in any of these years, you lose a first round pick. So a lot of teams are trying to make sure that they're not going to lose their 2032 first round pick. A lot of things like that are on the top of the minds of some of these GMs as they manipulate or maneuver through the trade deadline. As of now, I'm checking my phone because I have to be courteous. No other trade has happened. Kyle Kuzma just said goodbye to the Washington Wizards. Khris Boucher is available to play. Don't know if he will. He's been a name that's been on the market. And I'm getting a report right now that Kyrie Irving and Durant would love to be teammates again. They're dreaming of that, being teammates again one day. That is from Scoop B. Take that as you may. I do want to kind of switch gears a little bit. We're still staying on the topic of trade deadline and trades and all of that. But speaking of Kevin Durant, I want to zoom in on the Kevin Durant situation. I was extremely active on Twitter last night or in the evening, and I was just, not necessarily reporting anything. I'm not a reporter. I take reporting extremely serious. Having a relationship with a guy like Shams over the years now, I've gotten some insight on reporting and how important it is to be factual, to double check things and, your reputation. So I never present myself for the things that I know as reporting. But I when I do have some type of inkling or some type of information, I let the streets know. And yeah, Kevin Durant, yeah, it was real. Kevin Durant was talked about being traded. I still am a guy that's thinking that Kevin Durant is going to be traded, but I was throwing a curveball earlier today when I was visiting my uncle. Shout out to my uncle. Get well soon, Uncle Joy. He had a asthma attack, so I had to push back the pod to make sure I went to go give him support and everything like that. And while I was at the hospital visiting him, I got the alert right before I left. Kevin Durant has no interest in joining the Golden State Warriors. That was a curveball. I was anticipating Kevin Durant being a Warrior all of yesterday. All of yesterday, I was expecting Kevin Durant to be moved and to be traded. I thought that was going to be an extremely interesting fold to the already crazy deadline. I was intrigued when I saw the report that the Phoenix Suns, they kind of coveted Draymond Green. And so to think about the theory or the idea of maybe a Kevin Durant reunion to the Warriors in exchange for Draymond Green, oh man, that was enticing to think about for a second. Imagine the irony in that. Kevin Durant rejoins the Warriors in a scenario where Draymond is who he is traded for and he goes to Phoenix. That would have really been a very good stamp on an already crazy and chaotic trade deadline. But now we get this information, and I don't think Kevin Durant is wrong. I kind of agree with Kevin Durant. I like that for nostalgic purposes. I just have not enjoyed Kevin Durant in Phoenix, to be honest with you. I'm still not even used to seeing him in the Phoenix Suns jersey. It still feels weird. No hate to Phoenix at all, because y'all know I love me some Devin Booker. That's my dog. The all-time leading Phoenix Suns scorer, by the way, as of yesterday. Shout out to D-Book. But yeah, I understand maybe what Phoenix is doing. I want to give credit to Phoenix, by the way, because Matt Ishbia has been driving hard to bring home a winner to Phoenix. But with the Bradley Beal situation, over there now in that cloud, and him not really being able to waive his no trade clause to anywhere, it's kind of held up any trade that they've been doing that would help the Devin Booker and Kevin Durant duo. They can't properly make a move because they can't find a home for Bradley Beal. So what the Suns are saying is, if we can't get Jimmy Butler to pair with Kevin Durant, if we can't find a home with Bradley Beal, it only makes sense to be proactive and start the conversation of Kevin Durant going elsewhere. So Kevin Durant isn't requesting a trade, but they're being proactive as a franchise by just accepting the inevitable. If you can't make a move, this team is currently constructed, that this team that just lost back-to-back nights, well, not back-to-back, but they just lost twice to the Portland Trailblazers, because they just played the Blazers twice. It wasn't on a back-to-back night, though. I think they did have one day off. It's not a situation or a roster that makes you confident that they can go on a deep playoff run. And the inevitable is, if this team continues to fall short, or if this team has a season-ending situation, anything near last year, Kevin Durant probably is not going to want to stay in Phoenix. You just got swept last year. This year, you seem to be a little better, but you ain't that damn good. There's a potential chance that you get 5-1, 5-1 or 4-1 or swept again. And then that just puts the pressure on, because Kevin Durant's contract is running out. And he's not going to extend to a team that can't get past the first round. He's not going to extend to a team that has 50, 55, 60-something million dollars owed to Bradley Beal over the next I don't know how many years. So they're being reactive. And I'm all about GMs and ownership and franchises being reactive and not waiting when it's too late. So their idea is, hey, let's make them available now. If we're not going to be able to get Jimmy Butler over here and trade out Bradley Beal and create a new big three, we have to be proactive and try to find a situation where we can trade Kevin Durant for a big asset return that will kind of change our future outlook. And I was intrigued on what the Warriors are going to offer, whether it was going to be Draymond Green, Kuminga, picks, whatever. But now that Kevin Durant is saying nah, it makes me wonder where he's going to go. As a Knicks fan, we would love Kevin Durant. I know Miami would love Kevin Durant. We got Maddie on the team. She's a Heat fan. She asked me before I recorded, is there any way you think Kevin Durant can go to the Heat? I would love Kevin Durant with the Heat. I like the Heat team. I like this Heat team if they had Kevin Durant. I like it a lot more with Kevin Durant on that team. Hey, we just got the Scoop B alert. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving would love and dream of being teammates again. Hell, the way that the Clippers are playing, could they go get Kevin Durant? The Rockets, I know Raphael Stone is saying he wants to stay pat. He really wants to see exactly what he has in Houston. I respect that, brother. This is the first year of this team being a playoff team. Men has shot up. Jalen Green has looked good in flashes. Tari Eason has looked good. Sengun's an all-star. Dylan Brooks has been well. You still have Reed Shepherd, and Cam Whitmore has been phenomenal. You have a lot going on. Jabari has been hurt. You want to figure out exactly what you have. How good is this group? How far could they go with just this young group? I get it. But, brother, if Kevin Durant is anywhere possible with the assets that you already have young players and you have picks, you have the combination that I think Phoenix would bite at. I think Phoenix would bite at it. I also wouldn't be mad if Jimmy Butler somehow ended up on a Phoenix team that didn't have Kevin Durant. Only because I'm over Jimmy Butler. I was rooting for Jimmy. I was damn near on his side a little bit. But for Jimmy to go from I'll play for any other team to canceling out all of these teams to I don't want to play for anybody but Phoenix. I'm showing up one day. I'm not showing up this day. I'm now communicating to the Miami Heat brass and everybody that, hey, I'm in top tier shape and I'm ready to return if I have to. Like, it's just been too much of a circus. Shout out. If there is one positive thing I'm going to say about Nico Harrison with the Luka trade, shout out to him for saving the deadline, because the way Jimmy Butler and Pat Riley was acting, I was prepared to have a very quiet and dead trade deadline, because it felt like the Jimmy Butler dilemma had the entire league on pause. That's what it felt like to me. Everybody was waiting to see what was going to be the end result of Jimmy versus the Heat. And Nico Harrison and Rob Pelinka said, you know what? We're not waiting on Jimmy ass no more. We going to get this shit popping. And once that trade happened, it's been all hell since. So Kevin Durant. I have no idea where he's going to go. The last thing I do want to say is make sure you follow me on Twitch. Follow me on Twitch at Pee Wee the Plug. I am definitely going to stream the trade deadline outcome because I am anticipating another 4 to 5 deals happening and some big names being moved. Hey, look at us. This is our first emergency segment in Teed Up history. We have breaking news. Jimmy Butler has just been traded to the Golden State Warriors in exchange for Andrew Wiggins, Dennis Schroeder, Kyle Anderson, and a 2025 first-round top 10 protected pick. And we have a lot more moving pieces. The Detroit Pistons come in at the bottom half of this as a facilitating team. They're going to acquire Lindy Waters, Josh Richardson, and a second-round pick. And then Dennis Schroeder is getting rerouted to the Utah Jazz in exchange for P.J. Tucker, who is now a Miami Heat. Kyle Anderson was on his way to Toronto. That deal fell through, so he will remain with the Miami Heat, at least for the foreseeable future. And then on top of all of this, Jimmy Butler gets a contract extension, 2 years, $121 million. So he's going to be making $60+ million in that new contract extension. And yeah, that just happened out of nowhere. A lot of unfolding information. All in all, you can say what you want about Jimmy Butler. I had my opinions about all of this and how it was playing out. Definitely thought that there was, a light at the end of the tunnel that was kind of dimming. But here it is. No matter what I thought or anybody else thought, Jimmy Butler at the end of the day, once again, got exactly what he wanted, which was to get out of Miami and to get a contract extension. And the Golden State Warriors found themselves in a position to where they were desperate. I am never that much of a fan of extending a player at Jimmy Butler's age without seeing a certain type of, high level of play and without seeing the fit with my best player. But the Warriors had to do what they had to do in order to go get somebody for Steph Curry. I ultimately feel like this was a second too late. I think if the Warriors had this type of aggression or this type of desperation about a month or two to go, they would have found themselves in a much more favorable position. And I don't want to sit up here and act like the Warriors just gave up a king ransom. For me, it's the financial part of it. In this deadline, we've seen a lot of small moving pieces be traded here and there, just for teams to be flexible. We've seen teams trade their 13th and 14th man to get under the salary cap or the luxury tax so that they don't have to be in the second apron. And so the Warriors are going to now pay Steph Curry. The Warriors are going to pay Draymond Green. And now the Warriors are going to be paying Jimmy Butler $60+ million at his age, even older down the line. So, hey, you got to do what you got to do. I'll tip my cap off for Mike Dunleavy for making something happen. They tried to call for Kevin Durant, had no interest. They made calls for Brandon Ingram. They made calls for Paul George. Nothing else was able to happen, so they felt the need to go and give Jimmy Butler exactly what he wanted to make sure that this was going to be a marriage they needed. My only thing is, what version of Jimmy Butler are we going to get? I was under the assumption that they were trading for Jimmy Butler that wasn't going to get his contract extension right from the get-go, and he may have been motivated to play to earn the extension. Now that he's paid without having to do anything, are we still going to get that playoff Jimmy? I'm not saying we won't. I'm not saying we can't. That's just where my mind is going. On a flip side of things, I love the Miami Heat getting Andrew Wiggins. The Miami Heat position themselves always to pivot and make another move in another year or two. Give the Miami Heat 2 years. I think we'll see them have their next star and they'll be in the next phase of whatever the Miami Heat are trying to do. That's just my opinion. I know a lot of Miami Heat fans are a little fed up right now with Pat Riley and with his lack of move making, whether it's the offseason, the previous trade deadline, or whatever. And I get it. But I like this roster. I don't think they're going to compete for the Eastern Conference or go to the NBA Finals or anything like that. But on paper, I like Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, Andrew Wiggins, Khalil Ware, Hami Hakas, Jovic. I like some of the things that they have here. I think this is still a respectable team. I think now you have the cloud of Jimmy Butler and all of this situation and drama going on removed, and they can now be free in that locker room and figure out exactly what they want to do and how they're going to do it. And again, I think they position themselves to make big moves in another year or two from now to pivot into whatever their next phase of superstardom is going to be. You have to remember, this is a team that went out and got Shaq when D-Wade was younger. They went out and got a championship then. They pivoted from the Shaq era and quickly went into the Big Three era. After the Big Three era, everybody went their own ways. They lost Dwayne Wade. They went and got Dragic and some draft guys, Justice Winslow, Bam Adebayo, even Deion Waiters came in and had some moments with Miami. They didn't brought back Dwayne Wade, had some playoff runs. They used that end of Dwayne Wade's career to convince Jimmy to come on. They had everything ready for Jimmy. They went and made some finals appearances. And now here they see themselves again with a nice team who just got to pivot and another year or two find that superstar to put all of these pieces around, and they'll be right back in the mix at the top of the Eastern Conference looking to compete. Again, I like some of these other teams getting involved. Dennis Schroeder will probably get bought out. The same guy who was comparing the trade deadline to modern-day slavery has now been from team to team to team to team to team. I guess that's what you get for saying something so crazy. But I do like Dennis Schroeder. I wish he kind of would have stayed with the Miami Heat. That's just my own thing. He'll find a home if the Jazz don't continue to keep him there. And then again, I love the Pistons being a facilitating team and all of this whole trade deadline mess. They've been a team that's been around saying, hey, you need this deal to get through. You need that deal to get through. Give us a second-round pick. We'll come in and we'll help you out. Lindy Waters is going to be a guy that will knock down some three-point shots if he gets some playing time next to Cade Cunningham. So that's everything. We will still be locked in. We will have emergency segments as we need because Kevin Durant is still out there. Brandon Ingram is still out there. And there's still 18, 17 hours left. We'll see what happens. But our first emergency segment, I love this. We tee it up. Now, before we get out of here, we got to do a fan favorite, Q's with P. Make sure you follow me on social media at Pee-wee the Plug on Instagram and Twitter. And make sure you also are following Tee It Up. This is how you get your questions submitted. I post a tweet. We got our social team posting Instagram stories. Y'all drop questions. We react to them. The best ones, that is. But I have been seeing y'all drop a lot better questions. So, Christian, what you got for me?
I know you said you've talked a lot about the Luka trade, but I have one more question from you. This is from hoops_intel. If you were the commissioner of the NBA, would you have let the Luka trade go through?
If you would have asked me this that first night, I would have said absolutely not. But then as somebody who's like ran 2K leagues and I've been a commissioner myself, the NBA is not 2K is not the National Basketball Association at all. But I do know when you start to police things, you have to keep that same type of energy for everything else that goes around the league. You want to allow teams a certain freedom. You want a fan base to not feel like they were cheated twice. Remember, they did veto the Chris Paul trade. So if you veto this trade too, that's now two big trades in Laker history that they look at and say, hey, why are our trades getting vetoed? So from that perspective, I probably would have let the trade through, but I maybe would have stepped in and I maybe would have made the Lakers give up more, right? Like I probably would have helped facilitate the trade as a commissioner because again, it just looks fishy. I know the Laker fans, Laker Nation think me and all of the other people are hating because we're not jumping around in joy, but you got to understand, Laker fans, if Luka went to the Knicks, if he went to my team under the same exact circumstances, you would feel fishy and weird and kind of like, what the hell is going on? You would feel the same way the rest of us is feeling. You don't feel that way because he's on your team. But if you remove yourself from being a Laker fan, this looks crazy. That's my whole thing. So I wouldn't have vetoed it, but I would have definitely maybe came in and made the Lakers give up more, or I would have been like, hell no. I'm informing other teams that y'all making Luka available. You can still trade him, but you're not trading him for pennies on a dollar.
Hope I'm saying this name right. Elaine Perez Celeste says, not basketball related, but is there any, which we welcome over in Q's with P. Is there any rap records you've been bumping recently that you've been messing with that you wanna share?
Yes. I have been listening to this Mos Def, which aka Yassine Bey. I've been listening to this song that he made with The Alchemist. They have a project coming out extremely soon. It is called, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right. It's called Kiyani. Is that how you pronounce it? It's Kijani. Do you think I'm pronouncing it? How would you pronounce that?
I have no idea. I didn't know Mos Def and The Alchemist were collabing.
Yeah. I'm going to guess it as Kiyani. I want to say ha because of the jalapeno for J. So maybe it's a Kihani. But yeah, go check that song out. It is so beautiful. Apparently, most deaf Yasin Bey made that song dedicated to his mother. I've been listening to that on repeat. Y'all also know I'm a big Larry June fan. Larry June and the Alchemists Alchemists and 2 Chainz are dropping a project. So that's called Life is Beautiful. They've dropped about 2 or 3 songs. I've been in Bad Choices. I've been listening to a lot of that. I've also been listening to Baby Smooth out of Detroit, Flawless 2. He got the Start a Party. That's hard right there. Franchise. And then my boy Just Adam. Just Adam dropped a couple of singles, 111, and then also 48 Roses. So check those guys out. A lot of good music. And I think Pee Wee the Plug might be dropping something in 2025. Stay tuned, man. I'm in the mood to rap. Shout out to Mike Hurd. Mike Hurd might get on a record with me.
That Larry June album cover is beautiful.
Yes.
Next up, Jack Johnson.
Okay.
Says what college?
Love that name. Love Jack Johnson I love that name.
Efficient. Jack wants to know what college phenom, March Madness hero, did you think would pan out in the league, but didn't?
That is a great question. So to get to where I'm going to go through this. I was never big on Jimmer for that. Even Young P was like, y'all are tripping. Jimmer ain't going to do that in the NBA. Never big on Doug McDermott. Salim Stoudemire out of Arizona. Salim Stoudemire was a part of the team that lost to D. Brown, Darren Williams, and Luther Head, that team. And I think that's 2005. If you know, Arizona had an incredible lead. It's Salim Stoudemire, Hassan Adams, Channing Frye, Mustafa Shakur. They're doing their thing. They're killing the Illini in the first half. The Illini come out in the second half and they take over the game. They win it. They go to the NBA final. They go to the NCAA championship. They lose to Sean May, Rashad McCants, and Raymond Felton, that UNC team. And I love that Arizona team. I love Salim Stoudemire. One of the most beautiful left-hand jump shots. I thought Salim Stoudemire was about to take over the league. I love me some Salim Stoudemire. There's also a guy by the name of Bracy Wright. Bracy Wright played for Indiana when I was growing up. I thought he was going to take over the league. He got drafted to the Timberwolves, the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then I'm not going to lie, man. Derek Williams out of Arizona as well. Derek Williams was a madman. I thought Derek Williams was going to shake shit up over at Minnesota. I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know why that didn't translate. Obviously, he had a streaky jump shot, but the athleticism to do it allness was there. It just didn't pan out. That was not a guy. I wasn't high on Derek Williams, but I wasn't low on him either. I just thought he was going to be a really good basketball player. I thought he was going to do some nice things. I thought he was going to be good. I thought it was going to be much better than what ended up happening. And to see it not pan out was crazy. He had the college basketball world in the palm of his hands, by the way. But yeah, Derek Williams is one that I really, again, I wasn't like the next star, but I also wasn't like, man, he ain't going to be anything. I don't know what happened there. And then obviously Michael Beasley is one of my favorite players ever.
He was the second. They were both the second pick, right? They were both kind of like these athletic, undersized fours, like as the league was shifting. But Derek Williams was insane at Arizona.
I think Beasley was younger. He was one. I think Derek Williams stayed at Arizona for 2 or 3 years. That's the only difference that they had. And Michael Beasley was, to me, a 10 times better player, especially offensively. But yeah, I don't know what happened with Derek Williams, man. I don't know. Former Nick.
True. Let me throw out a name for you. Remember DeAndre Daniels on UConn on the Shabazz team, number 2? He's a power forward.
Yes. He could shoot it. Yes.
The Raptors took him in the second round. He never played an NBA game.
Did he make it to the league?
He got drafted in the second round by Toronto, pick 37. Never played an NBA game.
I liked him, man. He was a guy that was overshadowed on that team, but for his size, he had a little bit of a smooth jump shot that intrigued me, and I thought he would be a hidden gem. Yo, UConn not always, but they are a team that, like, for whatever reason, they are hit or miss with their pros. They used to have a left-handed guard when I was growing up, Marcus Williams. They had Emeka Okafor. They had Jason Bone. Hilton Armstrong was a lottery pick to the Hornets. I know Rudy Gay panned out well. Obviously, Kemba Walker panned out well. But UConn, Charlie Villanueva, Ben Gordon, when you look at the history of their players in that 2000s realm, because you have Ray Allen and Rip Hamilton, those guys panned out really well. But they have a tricky trajectory of what their guys are going to look like at the pro level when you review it. So, yeah, because even Jeremy Lamb I thought was going to be a lot better of a pro. I was very high on Jeremy Lamb. But that's the old UConn. I'm talking about UConn under
Calhoun.
The UConn under Hurley, they look like their pros are they pros are going to be a little bit more different. They're going to be at a higher level of pro. Oh, Jerome Dyson. Do you remember Jerome Dyson?
Yes.
At the chip too?
Man, that was my favorite player as a kid.
I thought he was going to be a guy that was going to do some shit in the NBA. Yeah, UConn has guys that look like they're going to be nice in NBA, and they're kind of hit or miss.
You didn't say Hasheem Thabeet, though, did you?
Yeah, Hasheem Thabeet as well. Hasheem Thabeet. Shout out to Hasheem Thabeet, man. Shout out to Hasheem Thabeet. My goodness.
And then Jacob Aromi is the name of the guy who, shout out Jacob, he guessed Gordon Hayward as the guest. We had a zillion people guess.
Jacob, I don't want to discredit you, but I will say the team helped y'all out a little bit with y'all guesses. They gave you they started to manipulate the voice. They gave you little clips. So you got it right. I'll give you a little credit. But I'm looking for some of y'all to be able to predict it before they give out that heavy of hints. But you got it right. What do you got to say?
Jacob zoomed out a bit with this one. He says, where do you see yourself in 10 years, Pierre? What type of media would you want to be producing around basketball? And would coaching ever interest you?
So in 10 years, I will be 39, knocking on the door 40. My birthday is next month, March 5th. Let's see. Am I going to be doing, let's see. I just want to see what day March 5th is going to fall on. And if we'll be doing a teed up episode on March 5th. Yes. March 5th, we will be recording teed up. It's on a Wednesday. So that'll be dope. It's also Ash Wednesday on March 5th. I just saw on my calendar. 10 years from now, 39, the type of media I would love to be doing, I would love to be one of the people that it's like, I would love to be a go-to person in the space for people to come and talk to. I would love to be looked at as that guy. Like, you know how Shams and Woj, they had been looked at as the guys for reporting. When news information comes out, you want them to be the people that are alerting you. You want to have their notifications on. When a player who has something to get off their chest, when a player wants to talk, whether it's a disgruntled star, whether there's a happy star, whether somebody just won a championship, just lost a championship. Like right now, everybody would love to talk to Luka. What is Luka thinking? What is he feeling? I would love the basketball world to look at me and say, he's the guy we want people to go talk to. When we want to know what is going on with these players or how they're feeling, when we want to interview, we want them to go talk to Pee Wee the Plug. I would love to have carved out that lane for myself. I'm trying to think in like the music industry, you've had like these big figures who people look at to talk to. Charlemagne, a guy that's become one. The Breakfast Club as an entity became a place that people went and talked to. Angie Martinez was that person in music. Hot 97 in general. I'm trying to think. Nardwuar is always a person that people love to see their favorite artists go talk to. I would just love to be a staple interviewer on every different level. Ex-player, current player, star player, rookie of the year, MVP, whatever. Disgruntled, happy, championship, just lost. Come talk to Pee Wee the Plug. Coaching. I want to coach one day. I would love to coach when I have like kids, when I'm super, super older, 25 years from now. I just don't know. In the current climate, I have no interest in coaching. I just know myself. If I was ever a coach, it would just be a certain standard that I just don't know. When I look around and I see kids and how they operate, I would need a certain commitment level. And parents would have to sign off on it. Kids would have to sign off on it. I'm about accountability, responsibility, development, criticism. And today's generation, kids just don't respond to any of that good anymore. And I think it's needed to develop a certain caliber of basketball player, whether it's a woman or a man. And if I can't do that, then I don't want to be a part of it. Christian, I'll give you an example real quick. Yesterday, you heard me when we were here. I had to leave after we were setting this up. Me, you, and Drew were talking because my sister had her first volleyball game. Christian, I'm looking on the bench of the volleyball game. It's one of her teammates is drinking Sprite. I cannot coach kids who are going to do that, because if I see that, I'm going to say, what the hell are you doing? We don't do that. And the kid would have to accept that. And the parents would have to accept that I'm not allowing that. I just don't see that in today's society when I'm going to gyms and I'm seeing kids playing different tournaments, different things. You just can't say anything to anybody these days. And if I can't do it a certain way, if I can't hold you accountable, if I can't have a level of excellence, then I don't know if I want to do it. I'll just coach my own kids. I'll train and develop my own kids, and I know I'll be able to push them however I want to push them and hold them accountable. But yeah, kids drink a Sprite on the sideline. One girl comes out of the game and she picks up a bag of Takis, and she's eating Takis. I'm not exaggerating. She's eating Takis.
How old are these kids?
They're 8th graders. They're a varsity middle school team, so they're 7th and 8th graders. They're a year away. In 6 months, they're going to be in a real deal. Once you get to high school, sports damn near become a business. I hate to say that, but when you get to high school, kids are playing for scholarships and to change their life. They're playing to go somewhere and do something with their life. That's when it kind of becomes a business. You're not, when you get to high school, it's not like participation. We all get a trophy. Everybody makes a team. No, you will get cut. If you're not good, you won't play. You know what I mean? Like, the best players are going to play. The best players are going to be acknowledged. The best players are going to get certain privileges. It's very different when you get to high school. And if parents aren't preparing their kids, it's going to be a tough reality to face.
Did the girl eating Takis have like Gerald Green vert and was spiking the ball left and right, or was she on the bench just chilling eating Takis?
No, she actually played. A lot of their team is first-time players, so I don't judge these kids on wins and losses. I tell my sister and I tell her teammates who listen, go out, have fun, learn the game, and just do your best. You know what I mean? You guys aren't playing in college or anything like that. You're not playing for a scholarship now. Have fun and do your best. That when they're that young and they're that new to the sport, my main thing is have fun and play hard and learn something. Every day, if this is your first time playing volleyball, every game you walk away from, you should learn something. Oh, I feel better spiking. I feel better serving. Oh, I just found out that we can do this. You know what I mean? And so their team isn't that good, which is okay. It's not about wins and losses. But yeah, I was very surprised because the girl actually was, I think she started. She was a starter, and she came out of the game and was like, oh well.
Fresh_class wants to know, what random role player has the craziest highlight reel and says, for me, it's got to be Stromio Swift or Mason Plumlee.
Yeah, I've seen this tweet. That's why I think I know who this is. What role player has the craziest highlight reel? It depends on your definition of role player, because in my mind, the league is majority role players. That is a great question. Honestly speaking, though, if we being real, Andrew Wiggins probably got a crazy highlight reel. Andrew Wiggins got poster dunks. Andrew Wiggins was a high school phenom. Andrew Wiggins probably got some crazy block shots. Andrew Wiggins probably got a crazy highlight reel that in 20 years, if we showed his highlights, or if we showed his highlights to somebody who doesn't follow basketball, they would probably think that he is a perennial all-star. Now, I know Andrew Wiggins did make an all-star game, so I'll even go down to a lower level. Hey, Najee Marshall, over the summer, me and my stream, because for whatever reason, Najee Marshall, when I looked at it, his isolation numbers were amazing. He didn't have too many isolations, but the quality of the isolation was brilliant. So I told my chat, I said, hey, we got to go watch Najee Marshall isolations. So I pulled it up on the stream. Najee Marshall was going nuts. Najee Marshall was putting people in the basket, off the dribble, ta-da-da, Euro step. So Najee Marshall got some shit. I think Peyton Pritchard. I see number 3 in the background. I don't know if that's a Peyton Pritchard. Did we discuss? Is that Peyton Pritchard?
Technically, it's Joe Young, but it doesn't say Young on
Joe
it,
Young.
so I'm allowed to say it's Pritchard too.
Cool. Peyton Pritchard probably got some nice role player highlights, especially with all the half-court shots. Mason Plumlee is a really good one because Mason Plumlee has always been a really good passer. He's always been sneaky athletic back to his Duke days. Who else? Who else is a really good? John Salmons. Back in the day, John Salmons used to get a lot of good buckets, man. John Salmons probably got a nice highlight tape. I'm trying to think who are else some guys that will come in and Troy Hudson from the Minnesota Timberwolves. Troy Hudson used to get down. Troy Hudson was a monster from Carbondale. Went to SIU, I believe. Yeah, those are just some guys. I'm trying to think of some other. Sean Livingston. The 2-3 weeks ago, I dropped a video on my timeline, Sean Livingston mid-range jumpers, and a lot of people was like, this is incredible. I randomly wake up, drink some tea, and watch Sean Livingston highlights. So it's a lot of guys. It's a lot of guys. But I think the best ones will be the ones that used to be high school phenoms or big-time college players who maybe just didn't pan out in the NBA, but every once in a while, they give you some crazy highlights. Oh, okay, we'll really end on this one. Nick fucking Young. Nick Young highlights are insane. Nick Young, every once in a while, would light that ass up, do a 360 reverse layup, dunk on somebody. Nick Young highlights. What we know Nick Young as the player, again, if you just show his highlights to a random person or somebody who does not watch basketball, they are going to watch it, walk away and say, damn, that guy is good. That's a top 10 player. And we'll be like, nope, never even made an All-Star game. That's why our league is the best.
That's a great list.
Hey, that's a wrap for Tee It Up. We appreciate everybody that tuned in, took some time out from this crazy trade deadline. Again, this was recorded on Wednesday. So at this point, you probably got a shit ton of trades that went down. But I appreciate you taking time to chop it up with us. I'm excited for the future of these episodes. We are off to a very good start on the show. The love and the support has been overwhelming. We feel it. And we'll see y'all next week. As always, from me, Christian, and the entire team, this is Teed Up. We out. Peace.